how do we value emptiness and the void as much as we value the fullest expression, and the journey on the way between the two is really interesting. And letting go of the judgment, I think that's the other thing that came through really strongly in that channeling, is the judgment will trip you up every time.
Welcome to Messages from the Body. My name is Kelly Vanyai and I'm a hypnotherapist. And Rebel Black, human agronomist, has asked me to take her into a trance so that she can receive messages for the collective from the body. As a human agronomist, Rebel knows exactly how to get the best out of people, no matter what circumstance you're in life. This information and advice, however, is of a general nature and is not intended as diagnosis or to replace medical advice. We always recommend that you seek your own advice from these sources where needed. Should you find yourself needing more personalised support, private coaching is available, so just reach out. There is a trigger warning here, as some of the topics discussed can sometimes be of a sensitive nature. If you are struggling with a mental health challenge currently and find yourself triggered by any of the topics discussed and feel you need to talk to someone immediately, we have provided a list of Australian services below that you can call to speak to somebody. For people listening from overseas, we recommend searching online for equivalent services in your area. The discussion you are about to hear was recorded following the trance state channeling I took Rebel through for her membership Wild Women. That's WHYLD Women. Wild Women. So, if you enjoyed this and you are a woman seeking to ask and answer her own whys in life and would like to be a part of a growing community of women with the same interest in self-inquiry and growth, the link to join is wildwomen.com. That's WHYLDWOMEN.com. And you'll find that link below in the description. But for now, we hope you enjoy this episode of Messages from the Body. And is there anything else to be shared today?
Only that my heart soars with delight in that process. So thank you for the opportunity.
It can be a beautiful experience when we take the steps to relieve that pressure that you were describing, the sparkling and lights in your body, that perhaps when we relieve the pressure that we're putting on in ourselves, we actually have some joy to experience and look forward to.
Yeah, well, a balloon makes incredibly joyful noises when the air flows out of it. It scares us, but it's like, to me, the expression of the balloon is being like, whee, as the air is expelled from it and it finds a new way, new form, new way. No better, no worse than the other. It's sometimes our judgment that holds us stuck and will trip us up.
Pressure. How it can be to serve us. What a beautiful analogy with the tire.
That was so nice.
That was so good.
Yeah, just see it so clearly. And then the balloon at the end as well, this idea of the form and formless and judging one form or the other as being better or worse or whatever. Yeah, really cool.
Well, it's true. When kids have balloons, they'll often spend so much time just blowing them up to let them go, because that is an expression of joy at the end. It's like, wah!
That's it. And the explosion, the pop and the tentativeness for which we feel balloons because we're afraid of the pop. And yeah, there's a really beautiful metaphor there. I'm also reminded of one of the sayings I have up on my wall, that I read when I need reminding, is you don't even have to climb. You just have to stop holding onto the bottom. And that analogy of that a balloon will float to the surface if you just let it go. And in humanity, it's the same. It's like there's nothing you've got to do. You've just got to let go of the bottom. You've got to let go of the string and let the balloon float. And that's such a powerful metaphor in life as well, for us achieving our aspirations or getting our desires or, fulfilling our goals, our hopes and dreams. So often we think we've got to do stuff, do. And actually it's just, we've got to let go and let the balloon float.
The word containment's coming to mind, that we spend so long trying to contain ourselves. As adults, we blow up a balloon, we tie the knot because we want to contain the air in there, and kids are like, let it go free.
Yes.
Maybe this is some message that we've been indoctrinated with about containment that's not necessarily helping us in all situations, because who says it's right or wrong to have the air in or out of a balloon? They're just different states and create different outcomes, I suppose.
Different experiences as well. Aesthetically, balloons with air in them are very beautiful, and you can put them together in a bunch and it brings joy and happiness and excitement. And then for someone else, it's just the sight of having a whole bunch of empty balloons on the table that they get to blow up, and the kids let it go and make the noise and, pull the thing apart and make it sing. And helium, is a whole nother story. So, and if we see ourselves as the container, what does the breath allow us? The inhalation, the expansion, the contraction, the expression, this movement. And I was thinking this morning about, I'm writing a piece on the energetics of enterprise at the moment. And I was thinking about the breath of a business, and that we need the contraction and the expansion in equal measure in order to kind of create the symphony, and it's like I'm making these waves with my hands, because it's like the waves of the ocean, that we need the in and the out, in and the in and the out. And if we really embrace that within the cycles of business, in all of the ways that we do that, measure success, output, profitability, contribution, engagement, all those things in the context of the breath. Now we're playing with music. Now we're playing with fun and balloons and shapes and different forms. And now we're enlivened in the expression.
It's so interesting, because we don't begrudge an empty set of lungs, because we know the next breath is coming in. But in so many other places in life, when stuff empties out, we start freaking out like something's wrong. But nature replicates in the same sort of patterns in different ways. And so the breath of an enterprise is such an interesting idea. I love that.
I know. And the cycles, that we go through, and emptiness, our judgment of emptiness. I've written about this before in the judgment of the gap. This idea that there's a gap, between where we are and where we should be, or where we need to be, or want to be, or hope to be, or aspire to be. And we're like, all we're trying to do is build the bridge across the gap without ever actually valuing the gap. So I think it is that, how do we value emptiness and the void as much as we value the fullest expression, and the journey on the way between the two is really interesting. And letting go of the judgment, I think that's the other thing that came through really strongly in that channeling, is the judgment will trip you up every time.
Yeah, even judging the space between, the gap, as separate from being full is kind of a thing too, isn't it? Like, it just hit me when you said that we're trying to build it over across one gap, and that there's two things. But is it just one? I mean, it is two, but it's also one, because the in and out breath is part of breathing.
Yes.
We can't keep filling ourselves up with breath. At some point we have to expel. And then in so many cultures, like shamanistic cultures, for instance, the out breath is the way to release an emotion. It is the way to take something that's stuck inside you and get it out. But you have to fill your lungs up first, and then you have to empty your lungs to let go of something, and then make more room for something else to come in. And that cycle is never ending. And so, yes, the judgment around which one's right, which one's wrong, it can get us stuck in a thinking that's not necessarily helpful for us.
Yeah. So
the other thing that came up really strongly when you were saying about the hose going into the tire, I started having flashes of like these moments where we'll get so fixated on a particular thing. We're like, that's the problem. It's right there. It's in that spot. And we spend so much time thinking about it that we stay there instead of just moving away somewhere else. Can seem so simple when you're attaching a hose to fill up your tire, that there's only one specific spot that pressure can build up. But when we're in our lives, I feel like one of the biggest shifts for me going through the journey was realizing that the pressure was being built because I was so fixated on solving a problem with this one particular person I might have been having an argument with, forgetting that there was the rest of the world to focus on. And then, funnily enough, the pressure relieved when I finally learned how to turn away and look for other places where the emotion was different.
Yes.
And so I was seeing that a lot when we were talking about the tire. It was such a good analogy.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is, like, in your life, can you design other release and or entry points so that you're not relying on one source for all air, like there is in a tire. It's one way in or out, which is great until it's not working. And so, yeah, maybe it's even exploring those multiple sources or multiple, ways for pressure to be released and or receive, for a filling up or a depletion, one way or another. So, yeah. And I love that idea of, well, there's air everywhere. What's another way of getting air into this tire? It opens up the creative portal, doesn't it?
So true. And also around the noticing when there's the right amount of pressure for optimal productivity or optimal like outcomes in your life.
Yeah.
Noticing, tuning in and asking those questions of ourselves of, does this bring me relief or more tension? And then following the guidance of your body in that way to use the effective or useful pressure to motivate us in life.
Yeah.
And getting into that space where we can actually discern when have we taken on too much. And also noticing those emotions like guilt and stuff that you mentioned that might come up when we think about releasing some of those things.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a dance, isn't it? Getting to that space.
It is a dance, but we're raised in a culture that says it's either or, polarity, black or white, yes or no, you're in or you're out. And we don't deal well with that when we're in complexity, because that's not how nature is. It's complex system. We are complex systems within complex systems within complex systems. And if you live in the binary, that's where the stories come. That's where, I've taken on too much, when actually you just love. That pressure is where you're just in your sweet spot, but the world's telling you, you've got too much going on. Like, actually, I love this. But then you feel doubt, you should do something else. And, so then you doubt yourself and then you don't do the things or whatever and realize you moved out of optimal pressure and now you're into some sort of sense of laziness and nothing's getting done. And yeah, so I think it's learning to dance within the nuance and the complexity of being a human that is a cell inside complex cells, and we are made up of cells, that we are the complex cell, system. And taking the pressure off.
Because it's all just stories that we tell ourselves at the end of the day, isn't it? About what that pressure even means and what other people's behavior means, what it means that we're taking it on, what our behavior means.
Yes, the meaning-making machine that we are.
At least we're good at something, right?
We're really good at that. Yeah. That's where meaning comes from, is the meaning we make of thing is the meaning we make of life. What's the meaning of life? That we make meaning of life. That's the meaning of life.
Can it be so simple?
Yeah.
I remember thinking that so much when I was going through different courses where I was hearing this sort of stuff for the first time, and like, what do you mean it's all about the story I'm telling? What do you mean it's just I'm making that mean something? It means something because I feel this way. And
yes. Yeah, which comes first, the meaning or the feeling?
That's a good question to inquire about.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what next session is going to bring in, given that we're always surprised by what's coming through.
Surprised and delighted, that's for sure. Those messages from the body.
And perfect timing for coming close to Christmas or to any holiday season for different people in different parts of the world, to have that little reminder that you do still have choice, right? Even if there is pressure going on or like there's more going on than normal. So based on what you channeled through, is there any last bits of wisdom that you wanted to share with people when they're coming into this part of the year?
I said just a minute ago, take the pressure off. And then I had this real flash of insight. It was like, no. That's still an external. It's like, let the pressure out. Let the pressure out. If you're experiencing pressure, let it out. It's not take it off, because that's an external. So yeah, take responsibility and let the pressure out in healthy ways. So if that means maybe finding new healthy ways or exploring a little further what a healthy way of releasing pressure, letting pressure out would be, because immediately springs to mind, parties, yelling, it's like those are not necessarily healthy expressions. So I think it's the inquiry around what would a healthy expression of pressure being let out be for me. That would be a question I'd be asking.
To relieve the pressure, what are the sort of things that you do, just for our audience? What are the sort of things you do when you become aware of an emotion that is wanting to surface? What are the sort of things you do to help release it so it doesn't come up and explode?
The first thing I do is pay attention to the story that I'm telling myself about how busy, overwhelmed, pressured, blah, blah, blah. And I interrupt that with a new thought, whether I write that down or whether I just listen to something that changes, the thinking. I've got my own sort of default mantras that I would return to if I find myself in that story. I use my husband as a mirror and also ask him to check me. So I'll, just say like, feeling all this pressure, can you just know? And he'll say something that is, we just know each other so well that I know when he says certain things that's a cue for me to do something different. And I breathe. I just return to the breath and movement. I'd always movement, whether it's yoga or walking or just getting into the garden or just physical, remembering that so often the body has become the mind. And so many of our patterns and stories and habits live in our physical form, that if we don't also release from it, that it becomes part of the repeat story, and the body starts telling the same story as the mind does, and then you're then you're in it. So those are some of the strategies. They're the same strategies everyone talks to, right? Because they're simple and they work. We
just got to remember to do them in the moments where we're feeling the pressure the most.
Yeah, well, and use your body, like jump, stamp, move, do something that, click your fingers, clap your hands, find something that works for you that's a trigger. Oh, that's just a story, find a new thought. Yeah, the body's a great tool for that.
The body's got the wisdom. Well, thank you so much, Rebel. That was another amazing channeling, and there's lots of great info and everyone's going to love listening to this one. So thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Thank you for your wonderful guidance and wisdom too.
And we'll see you on the next episode next month.
May you know your wild worth.
Love it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember to check out the links below if you'd like to continue working with Rebel through her membership, Wild Women.